I can't see why anybody and everybody wouldn't want to operate on a Bitcoin system. As Bitcoin continues to appreciate in fiat terms, I'm no longer incentivized to put a debt on my property to keep refinancing my property. I'm incentivized to utilize Bitcoin for the long term and run my business on a Bitcoin standard, which will allow me to eliminate the need for future rent increases. He's recognized $1,400 in savings over the course of the last 14 months of rent that he's paid just by paying me in Bitcoin. The systems that we have are extractive, and we're all trying to extract as much money as we can from the next person. The landscape is completely different, and it is so much stronger and positive for Bitcoin that I cannot see how anybody would fight this. Nobody can win this fight. They can dig in their heels, they can try to stop it, they can try to ban it, but they are going to lose. I know you've had, I think, Jeff Booth on not too terribly long ago. I don't remember when it was exactly, but I watch a lot of Jeff Booth's stuff, and when he's talking about the extractive system that is the fiat world, and then the Bitcoin world where we can all be working in a cooperative system. Um, this is what strikes me as playing right into that change in thinking for all of us, where I, as a business person running a company, sure, I could look at this and go, well, that value of the Bitcoin that he's paid me is 20,000, and I could assume all of that value increase or that appreciation increase. But I can also share that value increase with my customer, in basically my resident, right? And we can both win from it. And all it takes is me as a business owner saying, I want to use Bitcoin, and them as my customer saying, I want to use Bitcoin, and agreeing to this. So,
So
it
basically, just like summarizing what you also said last time, and I think we can jump directly into that.
yeah,
You are offering your tenants to pay with Bitcoin, and if they pay in Bitcoin, then a share of the appreciation of those Bitcoin will be accounted for the rent, and then they have to pay less rent. Is that correct?
correct. Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you said, as a businessman, you're like, okay, you could either accept the Bitcoin payments or the dollar payments. If they pay in dollar, you can also just directly buy Bitcoin with that, and then you have 100% of the
Yeah.
appreciation. But
Yep.
with that, you basically philanthropically incentivizing more Bitcoin payments in a sense.
Yeah. Kind of. I don't I don't even look at it as philanthropy, right? I just look at it as this is the kind of business we can run on Bitcoin. And when I look at the two systems of fiat versus Bitcoin, I can't see why anybody and everybody wouldn't want to operate in on a Bitcoin system when you can do this type of um, incentives, when you can structure your business this way, right? And then, I mean, and now you can get into further orders of effects from this, right? Where as Bitcoin continues to appreciate in fiat terms, I'm no longer incentivized to put a debt on my property to keep refinancing my property. I'm incentivized to um, utilize Bitcoin for the long term and to um, run my business on a Bitcoin standard, which will allow me to eliminate the need for future rent increases because I'm bringing in Bitcoin, which is appreciating in value. I'm eliminating the debt coverage on the property in the first place, and I can now hold my rents steady or reduce them as the fiat world around us continues to crumble or get more difficult. And as a business provider, I'm going to be doing even a better job of operating a more profitable, long-term, sustainable business going forward. Uh-oh. Is that me? If I do the thumbs up, oh geez, how can I turn that off?
Yeah, that's on the iPhone. I also have it on the Mac, but I turn it off because if I turn it on, my camera stops working, unfortunately.
Oh, really? All
But
right.
on the iPhone, it's fine. Yeah, it's like you can
Okay.
do one thumb, and then it will go with like one thumb. If you do both, you get like the fireworks. You can even do
The
like a heart and
fireworks.
stuff like that.
Yeah. I'll try not to do any of that as we go here. I should have shut that
Oh
off.
no, no worries, no worries. It
Yeah.
happens actually sometimes
Okay.
in the podcast. I think I've seen it every once in a while.
Yeah, I've seen it as well. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Absolutely. It kind of ties back into the whole thing of what the power of Bitcoin is, besides just having it as a store of value, more also as a medium of exchange and unit of account. Are you then also accounting for Bitcoin? Are you trying to slowly get into this mindset of like, okay, how many Bitcoins do I make and not how many Satoshis do I do?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well,
Oh, sorry.
Bitcoins or
Yeah,
Satoshis, right? Dollars. Yeah. Yeah.
dollars and then
Yeah.
satoshis.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. I knew what you meant. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, on this spreadsheet, you can see, this tenant alone has paid me 2/10 of a Bitcoin, right?
Oh
Um,
wait, I still
and
didn't share it. Maybe let's start with that directly and show it to people, if you don't
sure,
mind. I mean, it's a
yeah,
lot of numbers, but I
it
think you
is.
can maybe explain it to us so it makes sense. Let me
Yeah,
quickly share it so you also see what I see. It's right here. Do you see it now?
yep, yep, I sure do. That's perfect.
Should we
Yeah, I
start
don't.
here
Some
up
people.
or down?
I think that's probably a good spot right there. Um, that you can see the kind of the middle yellow bars there in the middle of the screen. So that should be a good spot to start.
Okay, and what are we
Um,
seeing here?
yeah, so we've got the total US dollar payment, or in US dollar terms of the Bitcoin payment for rent at my property. And so that total fiat US dollar value is $11,751 there, you can see. And then right next to it is point 0.2, or, what is that, 20 million, 200 million Satoshis?
20 million
Um,
satoshis, yeah.
20 million Satoshis, yeah, 20 million Satoshis. And you can see right below that then the value of that Bitcoin as it stands. This was on January 1st, would have been $20,000 in US dollar terms. And so the cool thing about, I think, about this spreadsheet, while yes, it is a ton of numbers, it really helps you and me and my renter understand the benefit that they're able to see or to realize by the deal that we have, right? Which again is we split any appreciation in the USD value of the Bitcoin that they pay me in rent, 50/50 for up to 6 months after they make that payment to me. And so, if when you go up to the green boxes in the kind of the near the top of the spreadsheet there, it starts showing, back in at the end of October, November 1st, basically the rent that they paid. There was a little snafu. He paid a little extra, and I had to send him some stats back. Um, but he paid the equivalent of $855 in rent that month in Bitcoin. And then if you follow that all the way over to the right side of the screen, just past the black bar, you can see the value at the time that he purchased that Bitcoin or sent that Bitcoin to me. And then the value of that Bitcoin when he recognized that price, or that savings at the end of April, was $60,000. If you go over a couple more boxes there. And so, the $855 that he paid had a appreciation of $326.86, which we were um, able to split with him, um, based on that 50-50 split. And he was able to recognize $150 or $163 of savings on his next month's rent. And I don't have that calculation on here showing that deduction. It's just every payment every month that he made, going forward from there. Um, and so, if you, again, going back down to the bottom there, to date, he's recognized. Actually, now I see this doesn't have. Uh, no, it does have it. Yeah, he's recognized $1,400 in savings over the course of the last 14 months of rent that he's paid. So the equivalent of $100 a month off of his rent, just by paying me in Bitcoin and having that agreement with him, just by the incentive changing there. And this is, I keep going back to Jeff Booth in my head, and when he talks about how we live in under the Fiat standard, the world, the systems that we have are extractive, and we're all trying to, I say this to my wife all the time. We're all trying to like extract as much money as we can from the next person and try and stay ahead of the Joneses, or get ahead of the Joneses, so to speak. And that really has a pretty big psychological effect on people. And I think it really has played into our, the entire world's mindset as to how you get ahead in life and how you run a business and how we treat each other. And when I look at that system and I compare it and contrast it to a Bitcoin system, so I mean, if I can run my business profitably, enough to pay the bills and have a little bit left over to maintain the building, um, I I don't see why every business on the planet can't operate something somehow, some way like this. And so it really is, uh, it's a big change in mindset, and it's a big jump for people. And I think even in the Bitcoin world, I think a lot of people still have trouble wrapping their mind around something like this, because it seems like I'm giving away the bank, so to speak, or you look at that $20,000 amount of the value of that Bitcoin there, and I could have realized all of that value myself. But then when I think about that, I think, what's the point of having Bitcoin? What's the point of having this sound money that nobody can mess with, that we're all working so hard to try and build new businesses on, and trying to work towards improving the life of everybody on the planet, when if we're not at least sharing some of that profit with people or some of that value appreciation. So I even like, I try not to think of it in profit and loss terms. It's really the value that my residents are giving to me and the value that I'm giving to them, we're able to share in going forward in time. So, um,
are you doing the same thing with the security deposit?
uh, so I would love to do the same thing with the security deposit. I don't, I think I certainly could do that. I haven't actually taken a security deposit from anybody since I came up with this idea. So luckily for me, our our residents have been long-term residents. Our newest resident moved in 2.5 years ago. So it was a little bit before this time. So,
Ah,
but I
interesting.
certainly would be willing to do it. So,
Because I always think like the security deposit, like just just give it to me.
yeah,
I will invest in Bitcoin, and
right.
you can even have a little bit more of the security deposit of the end of my renting, if you want,
Yeah,
then it's fine. But it's like
yeah,
I don't like that. They just it's so normal that they just take that money from you, because there are other security like you. What is the risk that I leave the town? Like you can that risk. So many
yeah.
businesses have to deal with. Why is why are landlords getting the security deposits? uh,
Absolutely.
in a hotel, I never have to put the security deposit on. If I stay in something like an Airbnb, there's a security deposit. So it's a weird thing. I don't know. Like I don't know if this has something to do with Bitcoin, but why is the security deposit even there in the first place? Like, do, do you have a reason for that? Like, is there some is it grown out of the history, or is there something else?
Yeah. Yeah. I think from what I know, what I understand, it is just kind of a remnant of the historical past. So when times were a little bit different and you really depended on that person to be living in the apartment and it wasn't housing wasn't in such short supply. Tenants, residents really had the option of picking up and going to another place. And so then landlords figured out a way to get the government to say, hey, we got to hold some money from the resident to ensure that if they do just pack up and go, I can recoup some of the rent that I'm going to lose, if they're in a 1 year lease or something. Certainly in month to month leases, it makes less sense. Part of that though is also the damage side of things. So, but you're 100% right. I think, certainly putting everybody's security deposits into Bitcoin and just holding it there for them makes 100% sense. And then if there is any damage, um, taking it out of the appreciation of that Bitcoin first and then giving them their security deposit back when they move out makes perfect sense for sure. So
Absolutely.
I think, yeah. Sorry, I was gonna add. I think. Oh shoot! Now I kind of lost my train of thought. It, in some states in the U.S. anyway, I am aware that landlords do have to pay interest on security deposits to the residents at the end of their lease. So if somebody it never used to be a thing, and then some states have passed laws where if you're charging a month's rent as security deposit, you have to pay interest to the tenant. Again, it's minimal, it's 2%, 3% maybe. So, but putting it in Bitcoin would definitely most likely be a better long-term solution to that. So,
That's I even had some security deposit back then in Munich, and they were holding it till they got the invoice for the end bill of the energy thing. So it took me, after I even
Oh, sure.
moved out, 7 months to get the security deposit back, and I was so mad. Even though it was not a huge amount of money, but it's just like, oh, like you see the opportunity cost there. You see the opportunity cost because
Yeah.
you know you could have put that in Bitcoin. You could have done something with that. And if you
Yep.
hold even a small amount of Bitcoin for 7 months, that could be a very, very good choice to
Yeah.
do it
Yeah.
that. And it just completely
Absolutely.
flips your thinking once you start thinking in Bitcoin. That's why I also asked you of like, if you started thinking in Satoshis, if you started thinking in the unit of account of Bitcoin, because it's a total game changer, as I think. You still
Yeah.
think in US dollars probably mostly. You also probably give your rent prices out, like your rent numbers in US dollars, I guess.
Yeah. As of right now, just the way the laws are written in the states, you have to denominate those rent amounts in US dollars in those leases. Um, there's nothing, I am working on an addendum to my lease that does put everything in Bitcoin terms and Satoshi terms, so, or Sats terms. Um, but I don't know how that would hold up in a court of law. It certainly has not gotten to a point where that needs to happen yet. And I'm sure as we progress through this, uh, this worldwide system change from fiat to Bitcoin, it's going to happen, and there will be laws written in Bitcoin terms. And we're so early in this thing, man. It's mind blowing to me how much more work there is to do and how much more change there is that needs to happen. Um, but it's also so reassuring to me to see it happening, to know that I'm out there talking to other landlords and owners of properties and spreading this word of how they need to change and how they need to start thinking in Bitcoin terms and how it can be a benefit to them and the residents in the long term. And I just know when we're as humans, when we're faced with two options, we're generally picking the one that is better for us. We're not trying to hurt ourselves financially or make our lives harder in the old fiat system and make it better in the Bitcoin system. And so I think I was talking to one of my managers, one of my employees at another one of our properties about this a couple weeks ago now. And this idea of these two systems being in place and trying to convince people, all the quote unquote normies out there, the everybody operating in fiat land, to jump over to Bitcoin is hard because a lot of people don't see the value in it. They just don't see what's in it for them. How is it going to benefit them? And so they're less likely to say, "Yeah, I want to switch over to that," unless you can walk them through that this concept, this idea of how the system is going to be beneficial in the long run. So, and even then, a lot of people go, "Oh yeah, it sounds like pie in the sky thinking," and it's not not workable. It's not sustainable. It's not whatever. They throw up every excuse we always hear, right? And it's unfortunate, but we'll get there. I think this type of showing this chart and this type of work being done at different places is the proof in the pudding, so to speak. And, I know from talking to my resident here, Kyle, that he is 100% on board. He's even more on board now than he was, 14 months ago when we started this little experiment, and he sees the benefit to himself and how it is helping make his life easier. So he's spreading the word to other people.
Did he get orange pilled with that?
Uh, I don't know. He was already kind of orange pilled. I think he's more orange pilled now. When we first started talking, he was telling me about how he's got some altcoins and stuff like that. And here in the last 2 months now, we've been talking, and he's changed his perspective on that, and how now he is 100% Bitcoin, not messing around with all the other altcoins. He is just focused on Bitcoin at this point. So he and his fiance, I think, want to buy a house, and so they are, maybe they're not fiance, they might just be partners. But they're looking at houses, and because I joked to him, I said, "You're never going to want to move out of here." He's gonna eventually see his rent going down, his cost of living going down. I don't know why he would want to buy a house, other than having his own private space, which, again, everybody has their own kind of line in the sand, so to speak, as to what they're willing to put up with, so, or live
Yeah,
with.
absolutely. I mean, it's the question of how much is it really yours if the government can actually take it from you. But yes, I guess it's more yours than when you rent it, of course. But it's still not like people can still come into your house even if you don't want it.
Yeah,
It's, of course, it's easier if someone else has the key to your house. I don't know if you hold the keys from your tenants, but I think most actually do. So
yeah,
that's a big thing. And yeah, with altcoins, it's interesting because they kind of lost the story. I don't know about you, but I don't hear a lot about altcoins. I hear some people talk about
yeah,
blockchain and Web3 and stuff like that, but it's always another project. It's like there's nothing sticking. There's like, oh, this altcoin, then it goes, a new one comes and then it goes, the new one comes and then it goes. It's like, yeah, they will never build anything there. I feel like I kind of softened on altcoins a lot in the past year. I was a really toxic Bitcoin maxi, and I was like hating on all altcoin projects. Now I just don't care about them. Like now I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah,
they
yep.
can live, they can do their thing. I don't care. But yeah, I feel like the altcoin story kind of went away to a certain extent. Maybe I'm just in a big bubble.
Yeah, I think it probably a little bit of both, I would imagine. I certainly, I kind of facilitate a monthly Bitcoin meetup here. And so we've got, new people come in, and they're generally the ones that will bring up altcoins during the conversation, even though we clearly say, hey, we're only talking about Bitcoin here for the most part, but we give everybody their 2 minutes to chat about whatever, and then we try and set them straight, and get them thinking differently about those other products out there. But yeah, it absolutely is a. I hate to see people dealing with altcoins and trying to uh, make more money, get rich quick kind of idea. I was thinking about that earlier this morning, actually, and I think part of the issue for people is everybody is at different points in their life, right? And so if you're a 18-year-old coming out of school, and you've got your first job, maybe you're making, I don't know, $40,000 a year. You're not making a whole lot of money. You're just barely making enough to pay your rent and buy your food. You are going to be, if you don't have access to savings, or haven't done, don't have a college fund, whatever, you're coming out of school going, hey, I gotta make every penny count, and I'm going to buy, I'm going to gamble in the casino, in the altcoin, shitcoin casino, and see what I can come up with. And I get that mindset for sure. I was there once upon a time, absolutely. But I think we all come around to seeing, when you've got the single greatest asset, commodity, whatever tool, whatever you want to call Bitcoin, and the ability to buy any amount of it, why wouldn't you just do that? Take your 30%, 40%, whatever your annual appreciation in the value, and just run with it. But when if somebody's got $500 to invest and somebody's got 5,000 and somebody's got 50,000, those are three different people looking for three different things. And to convince somebody with $500 to buy Bitcoin and watch it grow over the next 5 years is, I think, a harder sell than convincing the guy or gal with $50,000 to buy half a coin and watch that grow, because that number looks better. And if they've got $50,000 sitting there, they're in a different place in life where they can afford the time into the future. And I mean, certainly the 18-year-old has plenty of, well, hopefully has plenty of time to get into the future. But I think that the mindset of everybody living in fiat land for their entire life is a lot harder to overcome, I think, the younger you are, unless you're my kids, right? Or somebody, Bitcoiners kid out there, they're hearing about it as they grow up. They're talking about it. They know all about it already. So I don't know. That's every it's just everybody's in their own spot, and they'll get there eventually, like the saying goes, right? We always say everybody gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. If you've got a lot of foresight at 18, you may take that $500 and put it into the more sure thing than try to blow it at a casino, or try to, buy some, whatever the next meme coin is, and or the next five meme coins are, and hope that you can get your money back out of it when it does go up, if it goes up. So
I partnered up with Coin Vigilante. This is the most beautiful Bitcoin timepiece that I ever saw created by anyone. Look at that beauty. I love it so much. Coin Vigilante made a perfect Bitcoin watch. That's the perfect, subtle, elegant way to go out there and show that you are a Bitcoiner. And that watch brand is Bitcoin only. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. And make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. If you watch or listen to my podcast on a regular basis, I guess you already bought some Bitcoin. And now the most important step is to keep the Bitcoin. Keep them secure in a hardware wallet. My personal recommendation for hardware wallet is the BitBox. It's super secure. It's simple to set up. It's also a perfect gift for a friend who has still their Bitcoin on an exchange. And you can get a 5% discount with the code Robin at the checkout. Visit bitbox.swiss/Robin to get your BitBox. And the next step is to really level up your sovereignty as an individual. You have to have have the most secure self-custody setup. You have to secure your own devices. You have to protect your privacy. You have to set up an inheritance plan. And depending on where you live, you even want to have a plan B, a citizenship where you can move in case something goes really, really wrong. And through all those steps, the Bitcoin way is guiding you through step by step. And if you visit thebitcoinway.com/partners/Robin, you even get a 30-minute free call to find out how you can level up your sovereignty. 100%. And there are for me exactly two reasons you buy altcoins, or use cases for altcoins, I would say. The first is like gambling, as you described. It's like,
Yeah,
I hear it so many times. Oh, I'm in altcoins to get more Bitcoin. I'm like, maybe you should be in Bitcoin and provide value in society. Maybe that's a better way to do.
exactly.
But the second use case is interesting, because altcoins are cryptocurrencies. They have blockchains, and they can test things out. So for me,
Mhm.
altcoins is also a great test net for Bitcoin. We can test their things out in the real world, and see how it works, and test different things out, and maybe then see, oh, like there are some problems. Oh, that would work nicely, and maybe we can bring small innovations to Bitcoin. That is something that I'm open towards. I don't know if we
Yeah,
have to do it
definitely.
that way. I don't. There can be different ways to test it, but if that's someone saying, yeah, like let's test it out on an altcoin, then why not bring it to Bitcoin if it's necessary to bring it on Bitcoin? Because I think most of the altcoin use cases are either better on Bitcoin or better on a centralized database.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the cost of running a blockchain or keeping a blockchain up into the long future is just it it's enormous. It's a lot, and so to try and say it's better in an on an altcoin system compared to a centralized system, a database system, it that doesn't add up, right? In the long term. So
100%. But let's get back to the Bitcoin. We talked about before about the Bitcoin standard and how we're transitioning in there slowly. How do you
yeah.
imagine us getting there, and where would you say we are right now with that Bitcoin standard?
Yeah, man. I think we're really, really early innings yet. I don't even know. Maybe we're in the second inning if you're looking at a baseball game of 9 innings. Maybe we're in the second inning. I don't, we talk about trying to, when we're crossing the chasm, so to speak, to mass adoption, and I don't think we're close yet. Until all of our stores are starting to accept Bitcoin, we're not, I don't think we're starting to cross that chasm. I think we're still in the build up phase. I think this year and maybe next year, certainly here in the US, we're going to see a lot more of that. Um, I have not traveled to other countries at this point to see how Bitcoin is working in Costa Rica or in Africa or, other nations that have a larger need for it due to inflation in their currency. Um, but I think the US certainly and hopefully other Western countries are starting to realize or recognize that there is this better system out there. And I think with the incoming administration here in the US, we're really going to see some work done on that mass adoption side, on building the tools, getting banks on board to, maybe custody people's Bitcoin for them or whatever that looks like. I don't know. as a Bitcoiner, I don't really like the idea of Chase, JP Morgan, or Wells Fargo holding my Bitcoin. I certainly wouldn't let them hold my Bitcoin, at least not in any large quantities. I look at what Strike's doing, what Jack Mallard is doing at Strike, and I think now that is a place where I can leave a working amount of Bitcoin that I use for monthly bills on a regular basis. And I have more trust in that company and that organization than I do in a Chase. But, I'm also not naive enough to think that if the government said tomorrow, hey, strike, you're done, we're closing you down, that there would be anything I could do to get my Bitcoin out of there fast enough to beat the government, right? That's going to be shut down, done, because it's a centralized structure. I would certainly hope that that doesn't ever happen, and I have no idea if Jack's got things built up in other countries backing up servers or whatever, that information somewhere so that people could be made whole if the US said tomorrow you're out of here. But hopefully with the administration that we're getting, that's not at risk of happening. I think it's the exact opposite. I think Chase is going to come out and say, "Hey, Strike, what are you doing? How are you custodying people's Bitcoin?" Or River, what are you doing to custody people's Bitcoin? What systems do you have in place to make sure that this stuff is safe and nobody that hacks our system is going to get in? Um, I don't necessarily have confidence that Chase is going to do that or Wells Fargo is going to do that. They may just try and come up with their own system. They may have already built up that system and they're just waiting for the okay to turn it on. But I think as that kind of thing happens, then we're going to start to see more retail level acceptance of Bitcoin. And then we're really going to hit full speed, that parabolic adoption cycle. People call it a super cycle, whatever it is. That's what it's going to take. That's what we need to start seeing before I feel comfortable saying, we're at that point. We've hit mass adoption. So.
But it's I talked with Parker Lewis and with many others also about a similar topic about
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
gradually and then suddenly topic,
Yeah.
and it feels like we are right at the beginning of that suddenly phase, because the suddenly phase starts when we're just at like a few percent of adoption, and it feels like we could be there, especially if America actually does something now. We don't know what Trump
Yeah.
will actually do,
Yeah.
but we saw Michael Saylor with Eric Trump in Mar-a-Lago. Eric Trump is going to Abu Dhabi to Bitcoin conferences. Like there's clearly there's clearly an interest from them to
Yeah.
get behind Bitcoin even after the election. Like I saw a lot of things also after the election. Will be fun to see what they actually do. But if they do something, and we can talk about if that's good or not for Bitcoin, because there are also different opinions on that. But if they do
Yep.
something, that will enhance adoption and enhance the price in a whole different level. And that might just trigger that suddenly moment when then America does it. There are all the other countries watching America and like, oh, like they're buying they want to buy 1 million BTC. I think we should also get like a few hundred or a few thousand, right? So so that kind of
Yep.
game
Yep.
theory, it feels like we are right at the beginning there.
Yeah. I, I agree. It certainly feels like we're at the beginning. I feel like we're coming up to where that curve starts. Maybe we're at the very beginning of that curve, but uh, again, until inauguration day, until the 20th or the 21st, when Trump gets in, if those things don't start falling into place there within the next 100 days after that, I'm going to be a lot more hesitant as to the speed. I'm going to pull back my thoughts on as to just how fast where we are into that curve, right? I don't. I was around. I remember the internet and coming out, and when people first started putting credit cards and making purchases on the internet. And I can remember thinking and telling my buddy in our apartment that we were renting as I was going to college back in 1994 and 95 that I would never put my credit card number on the internet. And and now I've got two credit card numbers permanently stored in my phone for crying out loud and using my Apple Wallet to pay for things. And it's just like when that transition was happening, I feel like that's where we're at in Bitcoin. We're at that beginning of that transition and if if the administration changes and all the choke point 2.0 and 1.0 and all of that crap goes away, um, and businesses are encouraged to utilize this, or at least just freed to do it and not have to worry about being, fined or penalized or something for using it, then yes, then we're there. Then we're there. And then it's all bets are off. We're off to the races. This thing is going. I mean, it will become utilized by every single person on the planet. It just and it will do that in a manner that was quicker than what happened with the internet. So,
You're lucky enough to live through the internet adoption. I was just born in 1998, so I didn't really got to see a lot of that. When the
yeah.
dot-com bubble was, I was like 1.5 years old. So they,
Oh
they,
boy. Yeah, yeah,
they,
yeah. I was right there for all of it and watched it all and kicked myself every day into the early 2000s because I didn't pay more attention to it and I didn't focus more of my time on it. So
how would you compare
I was too worried.
the internet adoption and the Bitcoin adoption now? Do you see some similarities? Do you see something that is completely different?
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities. A lot of the same ideas, a lot of the same thoughts of the people in the old system, right? That, the library and the Encyclopedia Britannica people, spreading the FUD about how you need the written word and you need books and blah, blah, blah. And then people espousing the productivity gains and the benefits of the internet and having knowledge that not the ability to allow everybody on the planet to have access to this shared system where they can basically get anything at the tips of their fingers. I mean that's a lot how I see Bitcoin, where everybody will have access to a monetary system that is immutable, decentralized, uncontrolled by anybody, and open and permissionless for everybody to use at the tips of their fingers. And I can't see how that isn't a better world and isn't a better system. So
Interesting.
I yeah,
Libraries were fighting against the internet because obviously it threatened their business model.
I absolutely, absolutely. Especially the private libraries, your law libraries, and everybody that kept information. It's that idea of having that stored silo of information that has led to all the productive, not all, but so many productivity gains in human history, right? I mean, the first printing press allowed information to be spread. Now, it was the Bible, right? A lot of it was the Bible, We can argue whether or not that was good information or lawful whatever, just information, but it was information that was able to be spread to so many more people rather than having to hire a bunch of people to sit and hand copy books one page at a time and then trying to spread those around the world. So it that the internet did that for all the information and access to all the sales and all the stores and all the schools and now as we've built layers upon the internet, we're able to dig in further and provide that information to people at low or no cost in some aspects. Look at what Michael Saylor's doing, right, with hope.org and Saylor, his academy. I look at my kids who are 7 and almost 6 now, and I think num I think their college will be online and free. Like that information will just be there, or it'll be very close to free. They will have access and hopefully the time to dedicate to learning whatever the heck it is they want to learn to make humanity better, to make to encourage and promote the understanding of whatever it is that interests them, whatever the sciences, math, whatever it is, astronomy, you name it, theology, whatever, they will. My hope is through adoption of Bitcoin that they're going to have the time available instead of having to spend time working to pay a bill. They're going to have the time available to them to study the things that interest them at low or no cost, which will just make the entire world a better place. So,
I just wanted to
what do you?
bring that up. It's sailor.org,
Yeah.
which is
Yep.
absolutely amazing. They also have a great Bitcoin course on there. I think when we Google sailor.org Bitcoin course, we probably come there. Bitcoin for everybody. It's called Sailor.org Learn.
Yep.
That's a great one. I didn't do it till now fully. I skipped through it, and I
Okay.
think I did the first unit fully, but there are like 6 units or something like that. It's really good.
Yeah.
And like
Yep.
hope.com, I celebrate it so much that
Yeah.
hope.com is a Bitcoin website. Like
Yeah.
that alone is such a great thing, and I'm too proud of that. But if you go to interviews, there's my channel, so I really love
Yeah. There
I
you go.
love that
Absolutely.
that Zayla was on the show, because that website I learned a lot. I just like went
Yeah.
here and watched all the videos, and now it's crazy for me to see my own video here. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see how Bitcoin already evolved, that we have hope.com on our side. Like hope.com is a Bitcoin website.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's an educational website and it's all free. I mean, that's the killer thing, man, is and Jeff Booth talks about it, right? What does he say? The free market is deflationary, right? Everything should continue to cost less as we go through life. And we as humans, we have never lived in that system up until January 3rd of 2009, right? That's when we figured out that that is a system that we now have access to. And we're all coming to that realization and we're all making those connections in our brains at our own speed. And it is so hopeful and so I'm so optimistic of the future because of this new system of money and this new ability that we have to allow us all to work in benefit in cooperation with each other instead of against each other. instead of trying to extract from each other. So
100%.
it really, yeah. Yeah, I had a earlier this week. Sorry, I'm going to go off on a little tangent here, but I had a conversation with a buddy of mine who, I've been talking to about Bitcoin now for a couple of years, and he works in the tech industry. He makes a pretty good salary, but he's just this past week on Wednesday it was, he was telling me, how upset he is and pessimistic he is about the future and how he's living paycheck to paycheck. And this is a guy I've known now for 25 years. And again, he's making a very good salary and he's living paycheck to paycheck. And it just, he's so stressed. And I could just hear it in his voice. And I'm sitting there trying to temper my optimism because I feel a little bad about being so optimistic about the future, but doing all I can to help him down his journey and hopefully come to the realization that Bitcoin is going to help him if he starts to utilize that system. So, and it just it's it's a little heartbreaking to see that in him, and then to think about how many people, like I think in for us in Bitcoin, we're in a little bit of a bubble, and we get a little desensitized maybe to some of the struggles of the average everyday person walking through life, and it really it's just tough, and we got to get I this is why I like what I'm doing with my resident is I think we need to incentivize everybody out there to see the benefit of Bitcoin. They don't have to, my resident doesn't have to save in Bitcoin themselves personally to see a benefit from using the Bitcoin system. They just have to pay me in Bitcoin and they get to see that savings in their fiat world. Eventually, that my hope is that will click in some of their heads, as it did with my, Kyle, my renter that is paying that way. Sorry to bring it all back this way, but it has now clicked to him that if he keeps buying Bitcoin, as he pays me in the future, it's going to cost him less, even less, than if he just buys it the month that he pays it to me, right? So because now he recognizes the value appreciation himself in his Bitcoin holdings, and then he pays me in Bitcoin and gets to recognize that appreciation as well. So,
100. It reminds me of this. How should I say that? Everyone who is experiencing Bitcoin will be a Bitcoiner at some point because it's such a
yeah,
superior technology that you cannot not see it if you actually experience it
yep,
yourself. That's why I
yep,
find it very cool that I did it the same way with my sister. We had that small deal. She doesn't want to invest in Bitcoin. She's like, "Oh, I'm scared of that," and I'm like, "Okay, you just give me the money. I will invest it for you, and I guarantee you, I will give you the money back plus interest rates." That's like my
yep,
brotherly, my 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 promise as a brother to you. And we made it over
yeah,
like 4 or
yep,
5 years. And I said to her, additionally to the interest that you get, I will also give you a share of the appreciation that we are doing. So I took away all her
oh
risks to the
sure,
downside and gave her some portion of the upside. And over 4 years, she saw like, what? Like that happened with my money? Like
uh
crazy.
huh,
So you have to let people into the experience so they can actually see
yes,
for their own eyes how amazing it is. It took me a while to get the
yes,
medium of exchange sides of things of Bitcoin. it took me actually till I had the podcast, till I actually had to deal with Bitcoin transactions. Now I have with Coin Vigilante an American sponsor. I'm in Europe.
Sure.
Bank transfers are not easy. You need bank numbers. You need numbers that are not
Hmm.
available on the online banking. You have to call. You have to deal with that stuff.
Hmm.
You have to pay
Hmm.
fees and all that BS. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I said, hey, let's do it in Bitcoin. Like that's a, it doesn't
Yep.
matter where you are when you're in Bitcoin. We just did it in Bitcoin.
Yep.
And I was like, Sunday evening, I just sent him the invoice and he said like, oh, I will directly pay it. And like 20 minutes after I sent the invoice, the money was already in my wallet. It didn't have to go through like 5 business days of bank transfers and then go 1 business day to my brokerage account. And then I buy Bitcoin with
Yeah.
that. And then like, oh, it needs from the broker another a few minutes to my self custody wallet. It's like directly where I wanted to have it. So sorry for my small
Yeah.
tangent now, but like the power of Bitcoin, you have to see for your own eyes and experience it in that way.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I just recently got a story similar. Not where I'm receiving the funds, but I'm actually sending funds. So this whole 50-50 appreciation split idea, I'm trying to work on developing an app for it so that between my renter and I, at least, we can just plug in the numbers and we can see the information that was on that Excel spreadsheet that you shared. Um, we can just see that recorded right in an app in a database basically. And so I'm working with a developer who happens to live in Australia to put that app together, and I'm sending him Bitcoin in order to do that. And it was the same thing. It was a Wednesday, I think, but instead of going through a bank and trying to send him cash and into whatever he needed it transferred into, it was just, hey, just give me a Bitcoin address and I'll send you the first payment and you can get working on this thing. So, um, and 20 minutes later, we got the confirmation and he said, yep, we're good to go. So, and he's 16 hours ahead in the future. I always joke with him that he's, living in the future and, um, but it's awesome. I mean, when the technology works and it cost me like $2 to send it to him, and it's just, I mean, it's just mind boggling to everybody. It should be mind-boggling to everybody anyway, unless you've done it regularly, that this system works and it works so smoothly and fast if you need it fast, and uh, efficiently if you need it more efficiently. So
Absolutely. When you encounter all of that, what we just talked about, and compare it again to the internet adoption, what year would you say we are? Like, are we right in front of the dot-com bubble or like a little bit earlier?
yeah, I think we're earlier than the dot-com bubble for sure. We're at the beginning of accepting payments over the internet. We're like accepting credit cards over the internet right now,
What?
is what I think. Just the very beginning of that too. So where it's like maybe 1990, 91, maybe, where I'm not sure exactly. I'm sure the first payment was probably late 80s or mid 80s. But for me at my age, I remember the payment issue coming up at like 91, 92, um, maybe even 93. So and that's when I was like, that's not gonna happen. And obviously I was completely wrong about that. So
Yeah, it says it was widely recognized the first time 1994, seemingly. But
94.
yeah,
Okay.
it was like a Sting CD for $12 over the
Yeah.
platform called Net Market. Really cool.
Net market. Nice.
Never heard about those things.
Yeah. No. I never heard about Net Market myself. I don't remember that site. Like I said, I wasn't looking into it. I didn't trust it at that time, and so I wasn't digging into all of that. But um, I think when did Amazon first come on board? I don't. There were companies before Amazon though that were taking payments. I think. Oh gosh, I can't even remember. There was a big like a CD store that sold, CD discs in the mall everywhere, and I think they started accepting online payments sometime around 93, 94, maybe even 95. And that was too much for me. I couldn't deal with that at that point. But
It's interesting. It's really it shows how fast this whole thing went and how far we will go with Bitcoin. Is the
yeah,
lesson that you were biting your ass for internet adoption kind of why you got maybe earlier now into Bitcoin?
I think so. Yeah. I think that really played a role in my thinking and you know having focused a lot of my attention on why I miss the internet and what for a long time I kept trying to think of how can I develop a company online, what can I do to still get to be a part of this. I was thinking that even into the 2000s and 2000. I can remember in, I think it was 2004. I had this idea for like a software package for property management. I was already working in property management at that time, but it was, man, I get this. This could go on for a while, so stop me if I get too long-winded here. But I had this idea in my head that people could log into your website and take a 3D tour of your apartment before you rented it, and rent it, fill out the application, and rent it right online. Do everything, and turns out that was maybe 15 years too early, because now you can do that, right? In 2020, you could do that. You could go on to some of these larger companies' websites, and you could take a 3D tour of the apartment that you were going to rent, and you could see where in the building there were vacant apartments, and click on the apartment you wanted and fill out the application. So it's obviously it for me at that point in my life, the timing wasn't right. I couldn't take the time to develop that software, that site, all the information that was needed, and there were already companies out there, software companies out there that were developing this software technology for these larger property management companies, and so it just, I could see it coming, but I knew the amount of effort to put in, the amount of time to put in was just not in the cards for me at that point in my life. So Bitcoin really came around at the right time, more or less. I mean, like I said, I first saw Bitcoin back in like 2013, 2014, and didn't do anything with it until 2020, really. But now it's just the right time in my life. I've got the time to develop, to dig into, to really think critically about what the future is going to bring on this protocol, and how those layers are going to look, and what we can do. And I'm so excited. I mean, I hope to be, this app that I'm working on. I hope that that'll be able to, it's going to be all free open source software. It's going to be Nostr based, so it's going to be completely private. I mean, you'll have your NPub and your NSEC, and you'll be able to sign in and hopefully interact with any retail chain out there, any business out there, and be able to enter into these agreements with them if they know about the software, if they know about the app, and want to do it. So hopefully that'll help push more usage of Bitcoin. and help enable more people to understand Bitcoin and get that initial interaction with it, and yeah, go from there. See what the future brings, man. I think, man, we could talk about Fedi or eCash. I think. I'm I'm trying to picture in my head like putting together a bank for just my residents, just my buildings, and then for my company, the company that I work for, having a bank that all of our residents can make payments now through eCash. That way they're completely private and have that tie in with this app and the sharing and the value appreciation of Bitcoin. And yeah, I think it'll come in good time. It's just going to take some time. So
Absolutely, you will need some time to develop all those things. But
yeah,
how do you think? Because we talked about Fedi Mint and those things. How do you think that ninth inning, that Bitcoin standard looks like? How do you imagine that?
yeah, Bitcoin's the base protocol, right? The base layer of all of these other layers built on top of it. And so I think Fedimints and eCash, these mints are a little bit ahead of their time. Certainly for the people that value privacy right now, 100%, it makes sense for. I think as Bitcoin utilization grows and more people come to understand that, it's going to be easier for people to interact with these mints and exchange value and feel more trust that that mint is going to be there for the long term. I almost think that like instead of a JP Morgan Chase Bank, you're going to have a JP Morgan Chase Mint, and people are going to interact with that mint that will be the long-term holder and balancer of that mint. Now, you know, how that how exactly that operates, it may operate for, a month at a time, it may operate for a year at a time. And then people have to move their funds to another mint, so to speak. It would still be, you know, whoever that organized that mint, JP Morgan or whatever, or the Jason Hagenow mint kind of a thing. But you know, th- I think there will have to be some checks and balances there to ensure that the mint holder, the people that are in control, aren't uh selling paper Bitcoin basically, or paper e-cash. So
Love it. I mean, there's really like the more we go up the layers, the more we have to be careful of those applications and mints and stuff like that. Because
yeah,
if, for example, if you have Bitcoin on Wallet of Satoshi on layer 2, they can get those Bitcoin. Like they are not really. It's custodial. You don't have the keys to that and
yep,
stuff like that. So
yep,
I think
yep,
a lot of Bitcoiners are not aware of those small things to consider. I personally like to use Wallet of Satoshi. Just because the highest amount I ever have there is like $50, maybe $100 if it comes high.
yeah,
So I don't really use it for big amounts. So if they rack my $50, it's fine with me. They're
yep,
providing a
yep,
good
yep,
service. That $50 they deserve even. So
yeah,
that's
right.
how that's how I see it. But it will be fun to see how that massive influx of money that comes now into Bitcoin will then develop all those apps and layers on top of Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Do you have
yeah,
do you have a highlight of the past year? That I think it's now 8-9 months that we recorded the last episode, something like that. A
yeah,
lot of things happened in between. It was a fast year. Or
absolutely.
did maybe even your understanding of Bitcoin change in that realm, or did you take any highlights from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly a highlight for me is just seeing that this concept that I've got for Bitcoin and the sharing of the appreciation isn't wrecking me as the number goes up, and it isn't wrecking my resident as the number goes up or down. I mean, I think that spreadsheet showed, there was 1 or 2 months where the the Bitcoin that he had purchased and paid 6 months prior was actually valued less at those on those 2 months than it was previously. And so, he didn't, that was my holding as a business operator. That was my risk on the downside of, taking that, right? Taking that on for myself. But seeing that worked, that was certainly that it's continuing to work here. That's certainly a highlight for me. I think that just reinforces my mind that Bitcoin and businesses built on this protocol are going to be more beneficial to more people and will strengthen the network overall versus people that are out there running businesses, calling themselves Bitcoin businesses, but doing things kind of the old fiat mindset way. So, um, certainly, the information of Trump and getting elected and all the, 200 some other government uh, uh, employees, so to speak, that are Bitcoiners getting elected to office through the November election was certainly promising. Um, that helps solidify with to me this idea that we're winning. I mean, we are at it. It starts with getting as many people to understand Bitcoin as possible. And then those people get into positions of power as time goes on. And it is just I, I hate to say inevitability, but it certainly feels like it is an inevitability. I mean, when my Bitcoin business is operating and it is working, and then people are getting elected to positions of power to make everybody who's running Bitcoin businesses lives easier and better, and maybe even encouraging people to operate Bitcoin businesses and operate on a Bitcoin standard. It is it is enough. I don't know that I can be bullish enough about that. I mean, it just everything, all these transitions take time. The internet didn't happen in a day. It didn't grow in a day. Credit cards weren't widely accepted and widely used on the internet by people for almost, well, you said 94 to 2000 was the dot-com bubble, right? So that's 6 years. If I look at we're at that point in Bitcoin right now, in 4 years, 3 years, because we're adopting Bitcoin faster than we were the internet. It it blows my mind to even try and imagine what 3 years from now looks like. Even what the end of this year is going to look like, man. I mean, you said it. Last year was a mind blower from, 8 months ago when we talked, and I think it was April or maybe, yeah, somewhere back there, March, April, to now. I mean, it just is the world, the landscape is completely different, and it is so much stronger and positive for Bitcoin that I cannot see how anybody would fight this, how anybody will not not how they'll fight it, but how they will win that fight, right? I don't nobody can win this fight. That they can dig in their heels, they can try to stop it, they can try to, ban it, they can try to do whatever, but they are going to lose when more people see the benefits of the system working than not.
Hmm, interesting. I like that.
I think. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? Maybe.
absolutely, and I think we're at that very crossroad that you are talking about,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
when the more people that see it, the more people then afterwards also see it. Like it's kind of like a
Yeah.
self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. Even
Yep.
even the people that hate on Bitcoin right now kind of play in Bitcoin's cards, because they talk about it.
Yeah.
They make other people aware of Bitcoin. I told that
Yeah.
story, I think, in the very beginning of some episodes of the podcast. I had in my old university a professor that hated on Bitcoin a lot, and he was IT security, and he started his IT security lectures always,
Uh-huh.
like this, the first lecture of his course, always with hating on Bitcoin at some point in the lecture of his like 2 3 hour lecture. And this is the marketing that Bitcoin needs. Like he does the job. He's
Yeah.
orange pilling people.
Yep.
He's like, hey, Bitcoin is bad for the environment. And it's like, okay, but shouldn't you talk about IT security?
Yeah.
Like, why are you are making us aware of Bitcoin? So obviously,
Yep.
it's bad marketing, but it's still marketing. And you if you throw petrol, like benzene, like something like on a fire, you just make it bigger. And that's what the haters on Bitcoin are
Yep.
doing. They're talking about it and they're making it bigger. The worst thing
Yep.
that can happen is everyone ignores it and nobody cares about it. but that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but hating on it, it just makes it bigger than that. It gives it air, it gives it something to breathe on, it gives it more volume. But yeah, do you expect anything for 2025 on that note? Is there anything that you're looking forward to?
Man, I'm looking forward to the entire year. I can't wait. I think the Lightning layer two, Fediment, if you want to call that layer two and a half or three. I am looking forward to learning more about that, and um, getting my mind wrapped around how to make those payments and those systems work. I want to start a mint in 2025. What else? Man, I mean, the administration in the US coming into play. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to more information coming out on, miners and benefiting the electric grids around the world, not just in the US, but the idea when I sit and think about like the continent of Africa, right? And think that I don't some large percentage of the population there don't have access to electricity on a steady and reliable, regular basis. Um, it blows my mind that we don't have the infrastructure built up for that. And I see how Bitcoin mining can play a role in providing steady electricity to all of those countries and small towns and villages and whatever. And just, I mean, just the improvement in people's lives that can come as a result of that is, I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me. I mean, we're all so privileged to live with regular electricity and running water and refrigeration on a regular basis that at least for me, I lose track of the people that don't. And I just look forward to it, man. I just think it it makes me want to do everything I can to try and promote that and try to benefit uh, all of those people that don't have that access. I mean, and it's not just on the continent of Africa, right? It's all around the world where people don't have this access. But the numbers are just staggering, and the benefit is just it's like trying to picture $1 trillion, right? I mean, we can talk about it all day, but unless you really try and sit down and really, really wrap your head around that, it's just this kind of concept that is it. Yeah, you think it's big, but you just don't realize how big it is. Or like space, it's like you don't realize the distance between here and the sun is however many millions of miles it is, and it literally it's so big. The ability to provide people regular electricity is like, I mean, it's life and death difference. I mean, it just the the people can benefit so much, and the mind power that is there, that is, focused on simply surviving for the day versus focused on trying to solve our really hard problems with humanity, or with science or whatever. There's so much untapped potential that I think Bitcoin helps bring us to, that I look forward to watching the network grow and seeing all of this happen. Yes, it's not going to all just happen next year, but based on how the internet and adoption of that went, it's gonna blow our minds. So
I couldn't
sorry.
put it in a better context. That was really good. I loved it. Yeah, but we already had almost 1.5 hours. It always gets longer with you. I love it.
Sorry. Hey, I'm good. I'm good to keep going, man. But
Let's keep
I
going.
don't. All right, man.
I have a few more questions and a few more things
Sure.
that I want to talk to you. I don't know if I
Okay.
already did that when we. I have now a new question that I ask each and every one of my guests, and I don't know if I already did it last time with you. I think not.
I don't think
It
so.
is
No.
the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Yeah. I mean, I don't. I have trouble tooting my own horn, so to speak. I think one thing that I focus on in my life is trying to be present in the moment, right? And so, if I can if I can get anybody to be a little more present in the moment, I think, or to remember to try and be focused on what's going on in front of you right now at the present moment in time. I think the world would be a better place than everybody focusing on things that happened in the past and trying to, change the future necessarily. I mean, there certainly is. You got to manifest your future and make it what you want it to be. But if you're not doing good in the present, and doing the right thing in the present, you're not gonna you're not gonna have good production in the future, into the future. So
Absolutely, it's like the actions you take today will impact your life in like a few months or years.
yeah.
Like that's the thing. Really cool. We have an end routine that I definitely had already last time you were on, where the previous guest is asking a
Mhm.
question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And your question from the previous guest is, what are the ways Bitcoin has improved your life, both directly and indirectly?
Man. So many ways. I think it's almost difficult to put any set terms into that. Indirectly, it's given me even more hope and more, a more positive outlook to the future and what is coming. Um, Directly, I mean, certainly making my life easier to afford, certainly making my life easier to live, has been huge. Certainly making my life with my residents in my business, being able to it's enabled me to remove myself, not completely, but to at least begin to extract myself from that extractive model where I'm not trying to increase the rent for my residents every single year to ensure that, myself and my family have the future that we need. I'm building the future that we need and not so focused anymore on that extractive business model. So that really is just makes I just feel so much better when I talk to my residents and I can look at them in the eye and be like, "Hey man, how's it going?" Like, and really not not be focused on, "Hey, what are you doing to my apartment that I'm going to have to fix when you move out?" I get to focus on them as an individual and how they're living their life and what I can do to try and help them be better, live better, understand something more, stuff like that. So.
When I talk to you, I always feel like I want a better landlord.
Oh man, well, thank you. I think, yeah, I wish all landlords should, all people, period, should just be
Don't
better.
don't
I
don't
think. I
don't you
mean,
want to
yeah,
invest in some property here in Austria? I would love to rent from you.
uh-huh, sure, yeah, I would love to, man. I would love to. Maybe someday, maybe will come out there and take a look.
If you come, be my guest. I would love to see you here. Maybe we can do the
Awesome.
third round on the podcast in person here in Vienna. I would love that.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, yeah, that'd be great.
Really cool, perfect. And
We'll
yeah,
try and.
thank you so much, Jason, for already being on. Before I let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, and reach out to you?
Yeah, so I think since the last time I was on, I ditched my X account and my Facebook account, completely burned it to the ground, and I am Noster only basically at this point. So I'm the commoner on Noster. So you can find me there. I try to post once every couple of days, but I'm regularly out there zapping people for their good ideas and good thoughts and appreciating the input and their podcasts and everything else that gets put out there. And I also do a little bit of writing on Stacker News under the Commoner as well. So
Really cool. I love that. I will then post your NPub in
yeah,
the description so people can check it out. So thank you so much, Jason, for being on. Also, thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye bye.